seconds and I'm not going to stop
Anyway.
talking. All right, I'm going to take a minute to speak. All right, so some people is talking like, hey, share this link. And people is sharing a UNIRock link talking about the Nathan Oakley shenanigans, right? I'm not going to play anything from UNIRock. UNIRock channel is a drama, soap opera, bullshit channel, worthless. So people like UNIRock, they take content from a real deal panel like this where people come in to talk about the stuff what's going on. This is not drama. This is where the shit happens, where you guys are real people interacting with each other. Now there's other channels take my content and then they sit behind the content. They say, we're gonna talk about what went down in a stream and I'm gonna make it a drama thing. Did you consider this drama? No, guys, think about it. This is where the real people click and join. Who has balls and the pants in their places coming to panels like this to sort the shit out. Now, there's pussies like you, and then they sit behind the content. They say, we're gonna talk about what went down in a stream and I'm gonna make it a drama thing. Did you consider this drama? No, guys, think about it. This is where the real people click and join. Who has balls and the pants in their places coming to the content. Who has balls and the pants in their places this to sort. Who has balls and the pants in their places. Who has balls and the pants in their places coming to panels like this to sort the shit out. Now, there's pussies like UNIRock that they take the content and just sit behind the keyboard and it's like, ha ha ha, look, I'm exposing everybody. Fuck y'all. Carry on, guys.
All right, guys. Well, welcome to the open discussion 201. We've got a flat earther here with us tonight. Busy, you're a flat earther, right? Talking to the microphone, Busy. We can't hear you. You're a flat earther? Yeah. Tell us about it. Yeah. Well, I like sitting behind the keyboard and exposing people. No, you're fake. No, you're fake. Now we have to fight with each other. No, shut up, Busy. Shut up. Oh, the drama. Oh, the drama. I hope you liked our intro skit. And God, man, I missed you guys. I'm not used to being away from you guys for a whole day. This is crazy. Where were you guys yesterday? I'm upset with you. I missed you. I missed you all. I mean it from the bottom of my heart here. It was boring not talking to you guys yesterday. I got a great show for you tonight. We have an excellent show tonight. We got GemPanda and George. I'm going to go ahead and bring them in. Now, this is Open Discussion 201, so let's go to the Open Discussion studio. GemPanda, George. Let me start with George. How you doing, George, man? Glad you're here.
Hey, thank you. Glad to be here. First time.
All right, and GemPanda, man. Dude, I'm so happy that you came, bro. I love your content.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
Okay, so George was kind enough to bring with him some videos, so I thought maybe we could go through some of the video and react to it. But you know what? Let's just kind of first let you guys fill us in. If you want to go ahead and start, GemPanda, like, when did you get started on YouTube? You know, what do you do? And just let the people know, because I want to help get you some subs. You got great content, so.
Cool, thanks. Well, gosh. Well, I've been in this, I guess, for about 4 years now. Content producing for about 3. Before I did this, I was in the atheist Christian debate kind of thing. So in live hangouts and stuff, debating a lot. And then at the beginning of this, when Flat Earth was first popular in 2015, there was a lot of live debates going on. In fact, through 2016, there were debates 24/7, just literally all the time. So I was heavily involved in that. And when that end of it kind of shut down, that's when I really started content creating. And a lot of the stuff I've done has been about a fair bit about Apollo, the moon landings, and also more recently, I just like to, pick on flat earthers that I think are particularly kind of dishonest and arrogant. So, I've covered Riley's thesis and the story behind that. And I've got a couple of series of it that I've done called Faking Flat. The first series looks at Riley and Oakley and their claims about the Isle of Man that they made, a couple of years ago now. And the second series is looking at the Global Euro Tour and the people involved in that.
Man, I love these videos. You had to put so much time and effort into just the moon thing. I think you told me it took months to put that together, but you did a bunch of videos. But the newer videos you've done are excellent, man. The animation and everything is so on point. Right.
Yeah, I like to whack these bits of animation. I kind of try and mix it up and try and do, some serious stuff. Some of it letting the flat earthers just say the crazy shit that they say that is entertaining. Some of it is me taking the piss out of them, which I often do with animation. And some of it is me, being serious and doing a bit of sort of debunking and that kind of thing. So I try and give it a bit of a mix. So there's a bit of everything in there, really.
Yeah, and in case you guys don't know, George is the guy that was at FEIC. Now, you've actually got a history in the community also, George. So before we get into things, if you want to fill us in, like how you started out here or maybe what brought you into the Discords or the content creation and responding, and if you want to just let people know.
Okay. Yeah, first off, my channel is different. It's not really flat earth related. Most of the videos that I produce are for math and science students at the university level. So if you have listeners out there that might want to look at the solution of math problems and physics problems that are at a bit of a higher level than you usually attack at an undergraduate level, that's what my videos are mainly aimed at. I have produced about 3 videos that you could say are flat earth related. The very first video that I made was attacking the FE superstar Brian Mullen in his Balls Out Physics series, particularly addressing his Balls Out Physics episode number 3, having to deal with Kepler's law, and I went after that pretty hard. And that got me started on doing the YouTube videos. And then one other YouTube video I produced is one directed towards Bob Knowle. It's entitled Bob Knowle, Still a Fraud, Liar and Fraud, and Really Stupid. It has to do with his claiming that he's an engineer, and at times he's claimed to be a professional engineer, which he is neither of. In fact, he doesn't even have a college degree from what I can ascertain, and my research has produced. But we can get into that a little bit later. What got me started... What got me started...
Ahead, sir, sorry.
Oh, go ahead. What got me started on some of this was about 3 years ago. I was searching YouTube videos, and I was watching this one video on Richard Dawkins interviewing creationist Wendy Wright, and I started commenting on that video. It was a real popular video, had millions of hits. And I met Steve McCrae on there. And Steve McCrae invited me to the great debate community. So he kind of got me started. He and I developed a repertoire communicating back and forth via this Wendy Wright, Richard Dawkins interview. And so I went over to GDC, and there I met the Rumpus from the UK, who many of you might know appears on Nathan Oakley, beating on Nathan and Quantum Eraser. I have since given up on that. I used to do it, and I stopped about 9 months ago because I just got tired of the nonsense that takes place there with their constant muting and talking over people. You just can't get anywhere with them, those two. So that kind of got me started, and so that's the short of it.
Definitely, and we'll get into that a little more because I want to talk about Nathan Oakley as we get going. So you've brought with you a clip, and I think it's great. And then we've got some other clips. What I did was I kind of dug up some of the FEIC clips that included confrontations with M. Stone and you. That way you could give a perspective, and GemPanda and me, of course, will weigh in throughout too and give opinion. But then we'll roll in, after. We'll go ahead and start with your video. But one thing I definitely want to do tonight is have you guys help break down to the audience that whole Brian Mullins situation and, maybe fill people in. I think a lot of people don't know the breadth of what happened. But anyway. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get this started. Now, as I get playing these clips, if you need to jump in for any reason, please do. I don't care any little thing you want to add. Don't be scared to do so. And 100%, don't let me, keep playing the video if you want to weigh in. All right. If I can get this to work. There we go. Okay. All right, so let's start this off.
You can fly airplanes very, very easily. So do I think it's possible? Yes. And I can believe it. Thank you. Yep.
Okay, and George, I'm going to mute this, and I'm going to let you tell us really quick while we go through this first one, just your thoughts, because this is you filming inside. Go ahead and tell us what this video is as we play it and kind of catch us up.
Okay, this is the first morning of the first day of the Flat Earth Conference last week in Dallas, Texas. And I showed up about an hour after it started. The first half hour was Robbie Davidson giving a keynote address, and then it was followed by Mark Sargent, and this is who you see coming up here. I kind of came in at the last 2 minutes of Mark Sargent's address, and I thought I'd get an overview of how many participants, how many people paid to come to the conference. The conference was pretty much monitored by security, so though I figured that this would give us a pretty good head count of how many people actually attended the conference, because Mark Sargent, of course, was the big draw. So I figured, coming in at the end of Mark Sargent's address would give us an idea of the total number of people that actually paid for tickets to attend this conference. And in looking over the
you said that
there.
Yeah, you said there was a capacity of 550 or 549, and based on how many seats aren't filled, you had a good accurate guess. Maybe you said, what, around 400 or something like that?
Yeah, I figure somewhere between 350 to 400 attendees. You can see, that there are a fair number of unfilled seats, about 25, 30% of the seats might have been unfilled. And there were 18 rows. The first 10 rows had seating of about 36 seats per row. And then the last 10 rows, they gutted out the middle to have room for the media, the live streaming on that. So they had 10 rows of 12 seats flanking other side of the media spot there. So all in total, maximum seating was 554 seats. And I figured, it was probably somewhere 75, 80% capacity attended.
Yeah, I agree. GemPanda, now you've been following this community for a long time. So compared to the old FEIC conventions, do you think there's a lot less people at this one compared to the previous years?
I think it looks about the same. as
Okay.
the previous years. I think roughly maybe a few less than the first year.
First was the biggest, right?
I think so. But I think it was about maybe 500 at the first one. I think they were saying 500 to 600 last year. I'm not really sure those sort of numbers. But I do think it's very telling. I think, before this, one of the things I would say to flat earthers to annoy them was that if you added up all of the conventions and all of the flat earth meetups for the whole world for the last 12 months prior to this convention, then you ended up, the total attendance was less than 1,000 people for everything. For
every combined FEIC, right?
Yeah, every little meetup, every convention, everything that they did in real life was 1,000, less than 1,000 people.
Yeah, man.
which is pretty dismal, really, when you think about it.
Well, they charge a lot of money, man. It's like a week's paycheck for most young people. At least it's a week's pay to get in there. So that's
right. And as well, I think it's it isn't just that. Is that you've got to travel there, you've got to pay for the hotel, you're going to need a load of beer and stuff while you're there. You're going to be probably $1,000 easily by the time you're finished.
Yeah, I figure 1,000 is probably a pretty reasonable number for a medium-sized cult. I mean, that's what Jim Jones had down in Guyana before they drank the Kool-Aid.
Yeah. So, George, okay, you were here and you filmed this, and if you want to, go ahead and start telling us what happened towards the end of you filming this.
Okay.
Does it happen in the video at all?
No, it doesn't.
Okay.
I stopped filming, and this is where they broke after Mark Sargent's address and getting ready for Nathan Thompson's address. They were breaking for 5 minutes. You can kind of see the clock up on the screen there. And so I stepped out into the corridor with the rest of the people. They've all, most of them migrated outside into the corridor where the exhibits and paraphernalia for sale was all set up. So I stepped out there to look at the various items for sale. And I wasn't out more than probably a minute, and I noticed this tall security guy flanked by a Texas Ranger, really big guy, came up to me and said, "Are you George?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, you're going to have to come with me. You're going to have to leave the conference." And I said, "Oh, really? Isn't this, like a public offering?" He said, "Yes, but these people have rented this area and they have the discretion to eject anyone they want from this area." And so I went with the security over to the registration desk to surrender my badge. They told me I was going to have to surrender my badge, which I did. And at the time I was surrendering my badge, Bob Nodel's wife came up to me and got right in my face, started yelling at me about calling up people's employers to get them fired and all this, which isn't true. We can get into that later. But anyways, she got right into my face about this to the point where security had to ask her to back down and leave me alone while I turned in my badge and left the premises. But she was getting to be quite annoying to the point where, security had to tell her to leave me alone.
Even the security couldn't stand Bob's wife. Oh, man.
So they escorted me out of the area of the corridor where they held the conference, and we had an agreement as to where the line of demarcation would be for the rest of the conference for me not to cross over.
Wow. You don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but I do think it would kind of show people the level of disrespect that this kind of that they gave you. If you don't mind telling us the amount of money
Mm-hmm.
And you can just generalize it if you don't want to get specific.
No, I don't have general. The exact amount was $259.38. It was $250 for the tickets and $9.38 some incidental fees, and that by registering by credit card.
And then what, like travel? And did you stay in the hotel? Did you travel there? Or did you just, are you just close or something?
You mean the
total? Yeah, the total of your travel,
okay.
your trip.
Well, actually, the plane tickets were amazingly cheap. I was in Denver, well, actually in Loveland, Colorado, where I have a home, doing some yard work and maintenance. And from international or out of Minneapolis to Denver, the tickets round trip, believe it or not, were $32, and only slightly more going out of Denver to Dallas. And so the tickets overall, I spent probably on flight tickets. It was under $200, and then I rented a car. The car cost me about $200 for 3 days, and the room there was, $153 for the night. There was a rate because of the FE conference. I only spent one night in the hotel. One of the nights I spent with M. Stone in his home, and the night prior to that, I had spent the night elsewhere. And so I actually... Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry. I was just going to ask the total you thought that you were out because of them. You would think that if you did travel.
It's probably about $1,000. Not much more than that.
It's just really scummy of these guys. They did not put any type of provision. I think you've got a legal case to sue them. I know you probably won't. And people are like, why go through that much
actually,
trouble?
We're looking. My attorney and I are looking into this right now.
Oh, man, that would be so awesome
over.
if you did. Yeah, because listen, you didn't just pay $250. You drove there. You spent time doing this. You followed the rules. Now, I asked myself a question, and I want to know what both of you think. Now, Nathan Thompson was overly confrontational to every single Glober that was there. I thought that, I was wondering why, Robbie or Bob didn't, yank him into a room and say, hey, we've got a lot of money in this. Stop making us look bad to the entire world. And then it hit me I wonder if they told him to do that. I know it sounds crazy, but it would make sense. Go harass them so that they don't get in here and spill their debunkery out. But what do you think about Nathan, and why do you think they let him do this and they kind of basically encouraged him to act this way? What do you guys think?
I think it's very, very partisan. And in my experience, it doesn't really matter what one flat earther does. If it's sort of in defense of the idea, it doesn't really matter what they do. Others will just defend them to the hilt. And so I think it's that. I don't know. I don't think they'd need to tell Nathan Thompson to be as nutty as he has been. He just is, isn't he? And I think they'd probably be happy that he was there harassing and haranguing people that they don't like,
Yeah, I saw a clip. Somebody posted to me of it was a pre-conference meetup. Apparently, it was that what it would have been Wednesday night before the start of the conference the next day, Thursday morning, and there was a bit of a clip with Bob Knoll talking to Flat Earth Fokker, and from what I could tell in listening to that, Bob Knoll knew I was there already and was more or less seeming like instructing people in a sense that I should be harassed, or what the hell am I doing there? I've got a lot of balls being there, for example.
Right.
Yeah, Lori in the chat says that Fokker is the worst, and I agree. He's just a douchey kind of guy, but
right.
I agree, Lori. Is that Cat Earth? Cat Earth is in my chat. Cat, will you please do me a favor? If that's the real Cat Earth, please email me. It is? Thank you. You get the GemPanda. Cat, email me at UNIRocktv@gmail.com. Mods, will one of you drop my email for Cat, please? I need to interview you, if you're willing, about that stuff that happened ages ago, but we'll talk about that, later or whatever. Okay, so let's go ahead, since we're bringing up the video clips. Let's go ahead and play some of them, but I really want you guys to, anything you want to say, I want to stress it. Please interrupt me. I will pause it and, jump in with any thoughts that cross your mind or any commentary you have. So let's start with one of the best ones. This is the clip that made George the hero of the globe Earth. Let's go ahead and get it played here. And I want to go ahead and shout out Trolls versus Trolls. I always use their channel to play you guys stuff. I typically don't shout out Trolls versus Trolls simply because there's a lot of trolling that goes on in the comment section there, but I'll be nice and I'll shout them out. Here we go. Here's the famous clip. Let's zoom on in and get this going.
Here.
What? You're doing this?
Really? You're gonna steal my phone?
Oh, it's great.
George just stole my phone and threw it across the room.
He said, George just stole my phone and threw it across the room. So why'd you do it, George? Why'd you throw his phone, George?
Well, what led up to this was the second night. The first night, Thursday night after the conference, Flat Earthers filed into the lounge bar area where I was having dinner, and Nathan Thompson came up to me, kind of blindsided me while I was eating, and started interrogating me about Brian Mullen. He shoved this phone in my face and just kind of caught me all by surprise and off guard. And I had told him, I said, look, if you just wait 30 minutes for me to finish, I'll be more than happy to talk to you about it. But he insisted on talking to me, so I accommodated him, and he went away. Well, the second night, this was I guess the first night would have been Wednesday night. Then Thursday night, he came up to me again while I was eating, and
so this was the second time that while you were eating.
Time. Yes, this was the second time, and it was starting to get quite annoying. What isn't shown on this clip, he's just showing it at the time I grabbed the phone and tossed it, is before that he was engaging me for about 5 minutes, wanting to talk about Coriolis forces and reference frames and stuff. And I had told him, please let me finish my dinner and we can talk about it. And he said, no, you're here to troll the FE conference. I'm going to troll you where you're eating. And, and then he put the phone right in front of my plate, aimed up at me while I was eating. And that really annoyed me. I mean, actually, it did piss me off. So I grabbed the phone. I just reached it. The phone was about a foot away from me at that point. I grabbed the phone and I heaved it across the lounge area against a wall.
I love it.
And he started screaming. You can kind of hear it on the phone, but he was really making a scene. The phone was quite a ways away, and the fact that it was picking up his screaming is kind of amazing, because he was really making a scene of it in the lounge area at that time, and everybody was focusing their eyes on him and me and stuff. And then, but it turned out to be fairly worthwhile endeavor, because after that, he left me alone for the rest of the conference, other than that other encounter outside, when I can talk a little bit more about that. But that encounter outside was prior to him interrupting my dinner the second time. So that's what kind of led up to it. There were a lot of encounters between the first time and I was having dinner and the second time I was having dinner. There were some other incidences in between that just started, raising the level of annoyance that I had for him, and that led up to that. He just kind of pushed it too far, and I had enough.
Well, no one can blame you. Jim Panda, weigh in here, man. What do you think about Nathan and his incessant pestering of George throughout the conference?
Well, he's just being completely nutty, isn't he? And he just doesn't seem to realize it. And neither do the flat earthers. if you talk to them about this, it's George that's wrong for being there in their view, and the same with regards to Stone. And I mean, they weren't harming anyone. They could have just been there. Nobody could have spoken to them at all, and there would be no videos. There would be no hats being knocked off or anything like that.
Oh yeah.
You know, they made a big fuss because there were people there who they know disagree with them. It's crazy.
That is very true. The morning that I was removed from the conference, I hadn't spoken to anybody. I went there with the intent just to observe. I wasn't even going to ask any questions. I was just going to sit quiet, mind my own business. And I imagine because I registered with my credit card, and they may have gone through the roster list and, recognized my name. So then that morning they were prepared for me and was going to remove me no matter what. But like I said, as I went to the conference and I hadn't spoken to anyone, I was just minding my own business. And I was just going to find a seat, sit down, be quiet, observe, and just, hear from the mouths of the movers and shakers of Flat Earth what they had to say. I was there just to kind of enjoy and maybe meet some of the Flat Earthers and have some friendly conversation. But I did manage to have a lot of friendly conversation with the Flat Earthers in spite of being tossed out of the conference.
We'll have to talk about that before we finish tonight too, because I do want to entertain the side of Flat Earth that at the conference that were being agreeable and open. But one thing I want to say is that I have seen your previous videos, some of them. And especially when you were investigating whether Bob was a engineer or not. And that's when I found you. And I've never known of you to be trolly. Like, I see some of the guys that pop up in debates, some of the people that do open discussion servers, YouTube channels, and I think those guys are definitely trolls. I've never once gotten that feeling from you, though. So it's almost like they wanted to label you a troll just to get back at you for investigating them,
Yeah, well, the thing is, I can't troll Globebusters, Bob Noble and Jaron Campanella's
outfit
weekly
there.
show, because they have me banned. I've been banned from that for well over a year. I can't post anything in chat, and they won't have me on their show. I do troll a bit on Nathan Oakley's show. I'll go into the side chat and annoy the Flat Earthers there. So I'm not.
There's nothing wrong with that. We all do that.
That's what side chat's for, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The point is to find someone in there and annoy them, I thought.
Yeah. We all do it, man.
Yeah.
So M Stone was a fixture in this thing. Now, I would say M Stone did troll them a little bit, like when he blew through his straw and a little bit of spit goes out at Fokker. That's the video we got up here.
And he knocked Nathan Thompson's hat off.
And he did, yes, he did. So you know more about that than we do, George. So what I'll do is I want to play a little bit of this clip with sound, and then we'll come in throughout it and add some commentary, and then we'll talk about M Stone's presence at the conference once we go. So here we go, guys. We're going to hit you with a little video. So anyway, their audio is really bad in this clip, so we'll just go ahead and commentate through it. George, why, you talked to M Stone. I want to get a hold of the guy sometime, but you've actually talked to him, so.
We hung out together for 3 days while I was there. And in fact, he even invited me over to his home. I slept one night over at his house, and I helped him saw up a tree that had fallen down. What's really interesting, this guy that's in the foreground with this kind of balloony jacket on, he is was a Nathan Thompson sidekick. He threatened me once while I was there. I was in the office.
Is that Tstew?
I don't know who this guy is. I mean, he's
that's
got
not
that black
Tstew.
baseball cap right next to Frocker there.
Yeah, I
And
know. Okay, yeah, he's
he
a
has
little
this
older.
very gruff, raspy voice. And
Oh, George, he's the guy that tried to go up and get froggy with Team Skeptic.
He is, isn't he? Yeah, that's who
Yeah.
he is. Right.
If you is Sean in the chat, guys, if you see Team Skeptic in the chat, make sure you let me know. Tag me, please, mods, because if Team does show up, he's welcome to jump in a little bit too, because he was there also. But yeah. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, George. Yeah, the guy
no,
in the
that's
jacket.
fine. I mean, if you can help identify who he is, I never did find out his name, but he hung out with Frocker and Nathan Thompson, and he was always staring me down. He was always kind of watching me in the lounge area and stuff, like he really wanted to get at me. And I think it was the second day I was in the complimentary office that are for paid guests. You know, you have to have a key card to get in. They have a couple computers, printer, and all that, so you can do some emailing office work. And I was in there and I was emailing some of my business customers, and I had my back to the door, and I heard the door open, and this guy come in with this really raspy voice, and it was him. And he was, I can't remember exactly what he said, but it was, he was making threats to me that M. Stone and I better watch our step, because, you know, something bad is likely to happen to us. And then he ended up leaving, and I peeked through the window as he left, and I identified that it was him. But he and a few others also trolled and annoyed me while I was having breakfast a couple of times. I can get into that a little later. That was actually kind of funny, during having breakfast and having these guys sit down next to me and asking me ridiculous questions and conducting some antics that were kind of amusing.
Yeah, I was a little bit disgusted with the way these guys acted. They act like thugs, you know. They are not personable in any way. They're threatening you. They're definitely threatening M. Stone. And that's why I didn't blame M. Stone for responding like he did. Yeah, I mean, some people were mad at him for the spittle thing, the straw thing, and all that. But, hell, he had to exercise great restraint throughout this thing to not, you know, just reach out and clock one of these guys, you know.
They're very threatening just in their body language. The fact that there's 2 or 3 of them crowded around him. He sat down and they're standing up, sort of leaning over the table at him a bit. You know, it's threatening.
Yeah.
And they're meaning to be threatening.
Yeah, and any normal person would have, you know, probably reacted a little more violently than M. Stone did. He was pretty chill throughout. Do me a solid, George. Tell us about, now we don't have the video of M. Stone knocking Thompson's hat off. Do you want to describe what happened there or anything you know about that real quick?
Yeah, what that was is it was right around lunchtime. Stone and I were having lunch together, and unfortunately I had my back and I did not see what happened. Stone and I were at the table, and apparently Thompson and a few others came and sat behind me at another table. And Stone and I were talking, and Stone got up to go get a drink or something. I don't remember exactly what it was. And then all of a sudden, here's this big commotion going on behind me. Nathan Thompson starting to scream at the top of his lungs, "I've been assaulted. Stone's assaulted me. He's assaulted me," and just making this scene. But I kind of missed it. I didn't know what happened at the time, but apparently, you know, Stone came up, and as he passed Nathan Thompson, he took his hand. You know, Thompson was wearing this baseball type cap, and it looked like what he had done is taken his hand and whipped it up from underneath and, you know, capped the bill upwards, and, you know, it flipped the hat off Thompson's head.
Yeah, and honestly, that's kind of like Thompson should have just taken that. You know, do you notice how Thompson cries like he's been assaulted every little time anyone does anything to him? But you guys, I mean, imagine one of you guys would have bumped into him in the hallway. He would have acted like you guys beat him up or something.
Like in the clip with Tstew from Tstew's live stream where in the Owen Benjamin thing, that guy says something and they follow him out, and Nathan Thompson's all around him, telling him he's chucking him out when the guy was leaving anyway, and saying, touch me then it's assault. And it's just this whole crazy using your camera as a sort of a weapon in a way,
Yeah, he had it like every video you could see him. He leans his face in real far and holds his hand back real far with his camera up real high. Right. It's just this weird position for his body through the whole thing. But okay, so
anyway, it got to be quite a commotion. I actually afterwards, a few minutes afterwards, kind of stepped up and, asked Nathan to please calm down and tried to keep things from escalating, because if it escalated more, I'm sure that there could have been real damage done to Thompson, because Stone isn't a lightweight guy. He's really quite a muscular, solidly built man, and if it came down to any sort of physical confrontation, Stone would have prevailed by a mile.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, we got that little bit of a feeling when he walked by Team Skeptic, and Team came in and told us about this. He was heated about it. Nathan walks by and Team's like, hey, man, come talk to me. And Nathan's like, no, and runs off and immediately comes back with a thug. And then the thug goes, the guy, then the fluffy thing comes up. So it was just the most, he was just passive-aggressive throughout the entire thing is the best way to describe it, I think.
Yeah, that's a very good description. Yeah.
What's this clip right here, George? It looks like you guys are outside. When?
This was after the hat incident, apparently. Many minutes later.
Yeah.
And I think at that time what it was is Stone went to go get his car. We were going to go for a drive, and Thompson was making a big deal about having to step outside with Stone, want to meet him, and all this stuff. And I had told Stone, is we just need to cool it here. We just. We don't want to have any confrontations that's going to jeopardize our stay here. And so I advised him, we'll get the car and we'll go, you can tour around. Oh, this guy here looking at Thompson, he's the day manager of the hotel. And he and I have had a few conversations. He took me off to the side to find out what was going on. Yeah, that's the guy next to that blue thing there.
Was he at all critical of the flat earthers, or was he very I'm sure they paid a lot of money.
By the second day, after the encounter that I had with the phone with Nathan, I went up. I forgot what it was. I was checking out or something, and this guy's name is Josh, and he said, I hear there was another incident last night. I said, yeah, not too bad. So we talked about it, and he pretty much acknowledged at that point that he kind of knew what Nathan Thompson was all about, that he was trying to create content for his YouTube channel, and that this all was, put on drama. He kind of understood that, but he was also quite concerned, annoyed for his non-flat earth guests,
Yeah, definitely.
It did not reflect well for the rest of the guests,
I never even thought about that. I mean, Jim Panda, how would you feel if you go to a hotel and you walk in and Nathan's down there harassing somebody? Like, I'd want my money back, man. I'd be like, give me my cash back. I want a free stay, damn it, Let's see here.
Yeah,
anyway,
go
ahead, George.
Yeah, so he was annoyed and concerned about the drama that was going on in his under his purview here at the hotel. He was actually a very nice guy, and he was very diplomatic and handled everything well, I thought.
Yeah, he wants to keep both paying sides happy for sure, for sure. Okay, let's get through the little more of these clips because I can't wait to pick your guys' brains about, flat Earth over the last good while. Here's this guy. Okay, so that wasn't M. Stone. That was, he was probably a long-term Owen Benjamin fan that used this opportunity to troll Owen Benjamin is how I took this guy for sure, yeah. This poor guy. Hold on, let me play the audio of this clip. Okay, here, guys, just to give context to anyone that didn't see it, here's the update for this little spectacle. It's the third guy who received a little bit of harassment at the FEIC, other than George and M. Stone.
It's like you want to meet up. Don't worry about it. It's fine.
But you did though. You did though.
Do you really want to know the story?
Yeah.
I'll tell you the story, but you're being inappropriate. But I will tell the story. So.
I don't understand how he's being inappropriate, though. He seems pretty appropriate to me,
Yeah, it seems like a lot of these actors here at the FE conference overreacted or wanted to create drama, for content for their channel.
Yeah, and this is actually a Q&A part of his show, right? He's asking the audience to ask questions, and this guy asks a question, and
he's kicked out for it.
Right. I mean, and Owen Benjamin says that straight away. We've got a troll. And someone says, ban him straight away.
Yeah, they're yelling, ban the troll. Yeah. And that's a thing from Owen. Owen does that with his live chat as he went downhill in his craziness and accepting conspiracy theories. He would ban anyone, and they could say something that Owen would take it out of context and ban them. So, that's their funny little thing they do. Yeah, Han, you're right, buddy. He would ban them
for saying something he didn't understand.
Yeah, thank you. It's bad when you've gotten to that point.
Right. Yeah, I watched him for a while talking about, he'd posed this question about why the Earth doesn't crash into the sun when it's orbiting it.
God, dude.
If it's being pulled towards it. And he talked about how he was above average at physics, and he could go to a university and tell the lecturers what for, And then someone in the chat, so he's posing this question, and someone just put inertia, and he banned them for just saying
inertia.
Yeah, saying, how do you expect me to get it from one word? But if you were actually above average on physics, or even average on physics, and someone said that word in relation to that question, you should be able to go, oh, yeah, it's coming back to me now. You
should know anyway.
Right. You should have some idea of what's going on, but he hadn't got a clue. He just doesn't know, does he? He's ignorant and arrogant like most flat earthers, I guess.
Very true. Now, either of you may know this. What's the deal with the airplanes? What was the whole deal with that?
Right. Well, I think originally what it was is a podcast, some podcast that's somewhere in California it's done. And they said they were going to troll the Flat Earth Conference with a banner behind a plane. And then David Weiss got wind of this, and he decided he was going to do one. And then I can't really remember the reasoning, but then they had a bit of a whip round. They got some money together, and then they got a second Flat Earth plane to sort of reverse troll the trolls was the idea. So theirs says Research Globe Earth. That's the one from the podcast. And then the other two one says, I don't know, it's an advert for David Weiss's Sun and Moon app, Flat Earth Sun and Moon app. And the other one says Research Flat Earth Clues.
Isn't that so ironic, man, that David Weiss decides to run an advertisement for an app that he sells instead of some other quote that would help people find the flat Earth,
Right.
And it gives a little intent there.
Yeah. I mean, I guess he would argue because he puts up a daily video and what have you. It already has some archive videos in different sections, I think, that I guess he would argue that it is bringing them to Flat Earth in that way. It just cost them $2.99 because the truth costs, especially
for sure.
especially divine truths. Jesus needs those dollars.
Oh yeah, man. And Wolfie6020 actually debunked a flat Earth application that is exactly like David Weiss's. Now I don't know if it's the same one.
It is. It's that same
one.
one.
It was.
It does not work. And the thing is,
it doesn't.
When David Weiss did his sort of interview thing with Owen Benjamin that he's quite famous for, one of the things he said was he told him about this app and he said it works perfectly. And it's just a flat out lie. It does not work perfectly.
It ignores the southern hemisphere, didn't it? I thought that's what I took from
That's
Wolfie.
the main thing. Yeah, that's the main thing. But you'd find all sorts of anomalies really when you start looking at that kind of a model of the sun and moon circling above a flat disk. You start to find that places are in broad daylight when they shouldn't be, and other places are dark when there's no logic to when light and dark happens in terms of distance from the landmass to the sun. All of that starts to fall apart.
Yeah. Yep. So we've been through FEIC. The only thing we didn't talk about was what's her name, the Karen B.
Right.
She only kind of like argued with M. Stone, if I remember correctly, right?
Right.
She didn't bother you, George?
No, it was kind of interesting. She always kept an eye on me in the lounge area. 2 nights in a row. It was rather strange. She was always looking at me as if she wanted to approach and talk to me, but didn't have the nerve to do so.
Yeah, she probably didn't, because, God knows she would have went off and lied and bullshitted, and you would have called her out for it. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go into Brian Mullins a little bit, because not a lot of people, I didn't know until lately. I remember stumbling across Brian's old videos, and I'd say, man, I want this guy's channels. I want to go criticize him, and I wouldn't find a channel. So I know, GemPanda, you know a good amount about that. Do you want to hook us up with a little brief introduction, and then George can go into
sure, yeah. Well,
what he did?
Well, Brian Mullen was he was a flat earther who was also a civil engineer. And he did a series of videos called Balls Out Physics. And you can still find them being mirrored around the flat. Every so often, a newbie flat earther finds them and doesn't realize where he's gone and starts mirroring them. But he was claimed to be a civil engineer. And a lot of people were doubtful about this because he made some fundamental errors in his videos on mathematical equations and things like that. Some basic stuff that he should have known he got wrong. And so, I'll hand it over to George from here. George probably could tell the next bit better than I can.
Yeah, well, what was going on in some of his videos, he was declaring, that he was an engineer, not only an engineer, but a professional engineer. Well, I'm a professional engineer also, and I know what it takes in terms of the licensing procedure to attain such a license. I mean, it's not a trivial endeavor. To get a PE license, you have to first take what's called the EIT exam, Engineer in Training. It's a very comprehensive 8-hour exam, 4 hours in the morning, 4 hours in the afternoon. And when I took the EITs, I came away exhausted. I said, wow, this is the most comprehensive, intensive exam I've taken in my whole college, university career. And it's comprehensive in that it tests you on your knowledge of chemistry, physics, engineering, economics, and other subject areas, mechanics of materials, some statics and dynamics and things. So you have to know what you're doing in order to pass this exam. And then after you pass this exam, you have to wait another 4 to 8 years, depending on your professional, your experience in engineering. You go out and work in the workplace as an engineer, and then if you can demonstrate that you been active on a job for 4 to 8 years, you're allowed to take the PE exam, which is another 8-hour exam, 4 in the morning, 4 in the afternoon. And the morning session is, again, very comprehensive, more of problem solving. And then the afternoon session, you can pick 4 problems out of different disciplines. So you tend to pick problems, that are more geared to the discipline that you're working in. And they're not trivial problems to solve. They're real engineering problems. And so it was very puzzling to me. How can a man that claims to have a PE license botch concepts of physics and his mathematics and use of vectors and relative motion, all that, up so bad? How can he do this? I mean, in his Balls Out Physics #1, he held up at the very beginning of the video, he holds up this book on relativity by Landau, a Russian writer, a nice little book on relativity, and he immediately goes off into the weeds and gets everything wrong, opposite of what the book says. In the first chapter of the book, it talks about a spherical Earth, a spinning spherical Earth, relative notions of ups and down and sideways, and, that someone in Australia that apparently is upside down to someone in the Northern Hemisphere, to the person down in Australia, it's the people in the Northern Hemisphere that are upside down, that sort of thing, relative perspective on things. And Mullen's doing this crazy planes landing on a spinning ball and talking about it being a PE. So this was back before the Discord, and there was this discussion group called ED 2.0, Earth Discussions 2.0. Gem and a number of us were in there, guys by the name of Quartus, Curved, and others. And we were having this discussion quite often about, is this man really an engineer? So I took it upon myself to do a little investigation, and I called up the registration office, the Office of Licensure in Florida, to find out how to navigate the website. I was having a little trouble with the website and I located a couple Brian Mullins, and I wanted to find out if I had the right one. And so I spoke with a lady that answered the phone, the receptionist, secretary there that opened the phone, answered the phone. She navigated me through the website, and I found indeed that this Brian Mullen, who was now at that time living in North Carolina, indeed did have a PE license. And it was in good standing, and it was active, and there were no formal complaints filed against it. So I let it go at that.
Brian did. Mullins had, the engineering license he needed, right? That's what... Exactly.
Okay. And so that told me, look at, this guy has to know physics. What's going on here? This just doesn't make any sense. So I report my findings back to the group in ED 2.0. We have further discussions. And it's very, very puzzling because there were other episodes. There was this Balls Out Physics episode 3, where I made my first YouTube video attacking that and showing where he went wrong in his derivation of Kepler's third law. It was really quite comical. I recommend your viewers to pull it up if you can on my website or on my video. It's called Flat Earth Answers and Explanations, where I go through the derivation 2 different ways of Kepler's third law and point out where Mullen went wrong. And maybe my links don't work anymore because a lot of these mirrored videos have been taken down. But if you look out on the internet, I'm sure somebody has it yet up mirrored. It's called Balls Out Physics #3, well, Kepler's third law of gravitation. And at the end of it, it's just amazing. The last 10 minutes of this video, Brian Mullen is sitting there like a deer staring at the headlights, wondering why the mass of the Earth dropped out of his equations. Well, it was because he assumed that all the mass of the Earth-Sun system was centered in the sun, and that's why it dropped out of the equations. And he's sitting there wondering, well, what happened? The sun wins. This is a pagan conspiracy to render the Earth insignificant and inconsequential. They want us to worship the sun. He goes way off in the weeds with this ranting and surmising, talking about Masons and pagans and the sun and all this. And I'm going, oh my God, what's going on with this man? And a similar thing happened in his Balls Out Physics #5, where he's talking about he holds this book up of thermodynamics that he had from college, and then immediately starts going off and talking about the ISS and satellites and why they should burn up, that there isn't any heat transfer up in the thermosphere, and these things should be burning up. And I'm going, how can he do this? I mean, he's talking about conduction. There's 3 ways that heat's transferred, conduction, convection, and radiation. It's all radiation up there. It has nothing to do with conduction. He's way off in the weeds. And so, long story short, is I'm just puzzled by this. And so Quartus and a few of us talk about this. And the best we can figure out what happened. Oh yeah. Well, after my inquiry, about 6 months later, all of a sudden Mullen goes dark. I mean, really dark. Within one day, his Facebook channel's down, his Google account's down, his videos are down, his profiles are gone. I mean, the guy is gone. He just disappeared. No warning, and nobody's heard a peep out of him since. And so, the question is, what's happened to Mullen? Well, I get the blame for it because some flat earthers heard Quartus and I and Curved and a few others talking about this in ED 2.0, and I've become the bad guy. I've become the reason why Brian Mullen has disappeared from the flat earth scene. There's actually claims that I've called his employer and tried to get him fired, which isn't true. And there's even flat earthers that are out there saying I did get him fired, and he's never been fired. You can go back, look at his work history. In fact, someone told me they just checked the other day and found that he's actually been promoted. In the
he works for the
engineering
same company and he's been promoted.
Yeah. So he's never been fired. And I never called the employer.
Yeah, and let me interject for a second, because that was one of the things they were using against you at the FEIC, was saying that you had gotten him fired. You were someone that does that. And really, why would any engineer that is an engineer, that is licensed, if somebody said to a real engineer, I'm going to call you and check to see if you're an engineer, they'd be like, do it. Find out, go look at my accomplishments if you want to check me, I don't see why that would be bad, even if the argument was that you did try to call his employer,
If you were contracting him, or you were a prospective employer, you would do that anyway, as a matter of course, right? If you wanted him to build you a bridge, you'd check his qualifications, right? Or you'd assume the person employed him had,
Yeah, I always figured what may have happened is that maybe he was assigned to a project and somebody, the client for the firm that he works for, just maybe Googled him and came across some of his videos and started watching these things and going, holy moly, what's going on here? This guy is assigned to my project and he doesn't sound like he knows what he's doing, and maybe talked to the employer and brought this to attention to the employer, and the employer said, hey, Brian, you got to cool it here. This does not reflect well on our organization. But even more importantly, just a few days ago, Quartus and I were talking about this, and with Curved, and there was something brought to my attention that I had forgotten about, and this has to do with the first Flat Earth conference that was 2 years ago in Raleigh, North Carolina. Is it turned out Brian Mullen was organizing that particular conference, and it was scheduled to follow a conference that his organization, his surveying firm organization, was participating in. So he was organizing at the same hotel, in the same venue, on the coattails of the conference that his firm was in. So it seems kind of stupid that you would be doing this sort of thing. So it's not out of the question that possibly Mullen's employers got wind of Brian Mullen's extracurricular activities by the fact that he was scheduling the, this Flat Earth conference on the coattails of the conference that his firm was participating in. So, that's also a possibility.
Yeah, because
he was a partner with Robbie Davidson in that first conference. And it was in his hometown, right?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Yeah, and it seems like his employer, would find out eventually. And what would any employer do? I don't care if you worked like anywhere that builds things, construction or whatever. If you're doing some crazy stuff on the internet that's in complete contradiction to your job, they're going to say something. People get fired nowadays for what they post on Twitter sometimes. So, I don't see it being that weird.
And I think there's a question of liability, isn't there? I mean, if you're an employer and you have an employee who comes to work one day and says the earth is flat, and then, he does something that harms himself or someone else, and this ends up in court, a lawyer is going to say to you, so, Mr. Smith came into work, told you the earth was flat, and you still let him go out and drive one of your trucks.
Or fly a plane or whatever.
Right. You're gonna have a hard time defending that, I think, if an employee were to do that. It's
they want to do it for safety reasons.
Yeah,
right.
And more importantly, we're talking about public safety here, because at that time, Brian Mullen was employed by this Arity Surveying as a bridge inspector, and that was kind of.
Oh man, that definitely relates. And then think about his mental state. They would just probably be wondering, like, do we need to do a mental health checkup on the guy? Is what they'd probably think,
right.
We have to be able to admit that physics and geometry shows us that the Earth is a globe, and if you can't realize that, there's probably another internal issue that's causing you to act like this on the internet if it's not for money or something.
Yeah, well, newsflash, bridges fail because they fall down due to buoyancy and density,
There you go. There you go. And that's so dumb. It's so basic. If we do have a pressure gradient, if it was buoyancy and density, why aren't things falling up? It's so dumb to say buoyancy and density. I can't even.
Right. And how useful is that if you want to describe the orbit of a planet? Well, how does it work then?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, there's no medium in which to have buoyancy, but of course, space doesn't exist. We know that,
Right.
Yeah. So when talking about Brian here, you could say that the only thing that you guys did was basically see that if in the college level and in the guy's job, he is going to have things happen where he admits that it's a globe, and yet this man has this good job where he's telling people the Earth is flat online, and you're investigating to say something's wrong here. If we flip the script, Nathan Thompson or whatever, anyone, and the opposite had happened, they do that stuff anyway. They
right.
stalk and track. It doesn't seem out of question for them to do something like that anyway. So
yeah. Well, I'm kind of alone on this one scenario that I have that I think could possibly be true, but everybody else seems to disagree with me. But I'm kind of wondering if this wasn't sort of a joke to start with by Brian Mullen, because look at the man passed the EIT exam. He passed the PE exam. He's not a dummy. You have to have a 70 percentile or better to pass these exams, and these are non-trivial exams. So the question is, why? Can the man go through college, get decent grades, pass the EITs, the PE exam, and botch up everything on his 6 episodes of Balls Out Physics with it not being some sort of a joke? I'm wondering if it wasn't some sort of a joke that kind of got out of hand. He started getting a lot of notoriety, a lot of attention, and maybe enjoyed it, maybe enjoyed this newfound fame that he had, and it just kind of took a life of its own. I don't, that's a possibility. And he disappeared from Flat Earth because he's afraid of the retaliation. I mean, a lot of these Flat Earthers are known not to be very nice to people that exit their fold. I mean, this happened to Barbie. Barbie's property was being destroyed. She almost had a nervous breakdown because she had left Flat Earth. She had a very successful Flat Earth channel, 2,500 subs or better, 3,500, I think it was at the time. And they just treated her horribly when she finally revealed to them that she felt that the Earth was not flat and was a globe. So Mullen could have been embarrassed to try to reveal to his followers that maybe he was just kind of having fun and duping them, and was embarrassed to let them down. I don't know. I
think he was a biblical flat earther. He's already a young earth creationist. I think for him it's not it wasn't a big leap. And I think what is common among those fundy Christians, if I can be that disrespectful, is
no, please.
They love to try and out Christian each other. They love it if they think that they're more godly than the next guy, And
let me go. I'll go ahead. One second. We got a super chat, and if I don't do it, I'll forget. So M Stone, thanks for the $4.99. He said, thanks for getting the truth out there, and go big George. George should get a refund. # Robbie Davidson for jail. # lock up Nathan Thompson. I agree, sir.
Hey there, M Stone. We had a good time together.
And I wish I would have been able to contact M Stone through Discord before this, too, because I would have definitely brought him in. Maybe we can have another chat in a week or two or whenever, a few days, and we can get him in here with us to sit down.
Sure.
So. Okay, so we've been through the Brian Mullins thing. My opinion, I'm with you, Jim Panda. In the end, I think that there was something behind the scenes there. So, that would be an explanation. And there are, fundamentalist Christians. There's a lot of extreme people with extreme views that hold good jobs, and maybe that's what he was. So, but one thing I want to talk about is Nathan Oakley. And I know that Jim Panda's paid close attention to Oakley and Riley, and those guys are all connected together. And I know that George has actually been on the show several times. So, a lot of my audience only has been exposed to Oakley as I have, which is within the last year. So I don't know if you guys want to kind of like add anything to the mix or pop in and give us something. Or
I think I hadn't started off, Jim.
Yeah, I think the story begins with me, I have to say, because if you look on Oakley's channel and you search my name, you'll see some videos abusing me and accusing me of child abuse and things.
Oh, man.
But if you keep going back further than that, you'll find a video where it's just Nathan and I talking, and we'd been in a live chat together. We weren't, we didn't hate each other at that point. And I'd talked about these days that I mentioned earlier back in 2016 when there were these 24/7 debates going on. And I talked about this, how I missed this. And Nathan says, "Oh, do you want to do a live?" And we went live. And he said, "I'm thinking about doing this show." That's a great idea, Nathan.
Why didn't you stop him, Panda? Why? I'm just playing.
Well, he was promising like a properly moderated debate. And to be fair to him, that is what we got for the first 76 debates.
You got to be kidding me. Really?
Yeah. If you go back and look, because they're all still there, you go up to debate 76, Nathan is perfectly reasonable. Then from debate 77, he gets increasingly more mental as time goes on. And what was happening at that time was this now infamous Isle of Man observation that Riley had made, where he'd filmed the Isle of Man and he got some other landmass to the right of it that he at first claimed was Scotland and then claimed was Ireland. And this went on and on and on for weeks and weeks. I mean, the coast of Ireland from England is, 90 miles away, I think, or something at the closest point. So far too far to see. No, no massive mountains or anything. But he claimed he could see Ireland, and they reckon they triangulated this lighthouse and all of this stuff. It went on for weeks and weeks and weeks, and they went on a sort of grand tour of flat Earth hangouts to tell everyone that it was all over and they'd proved the Earth was flat because they could see Ireland from England. And then a couple of weeks later, they had to admit that they got it all wrong. But but really that was the turning point for Nathan. And I think that when often I hear a lot of people say Nathan doesn't believe the Earth's flat, he's just playing a part.
I say that sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, and I say that sometimes as well. I'm not, 100% on it, but I think if there was a turning point for Nathan, that was the turning point. It was when they'd been through all of this stuff. The arguments about it went on for weeks, because originally Riley said he was at 35 feet, and it turned out he's actually at about 130 feet when he took the observation, and there was all sorts of other, debate around it that went on for ages. What it was we were looking at, and then some guy turned up in the chat that was actually lived on the Isle of Man, and he gave his opinion on it, and it was hellish. But that was really the turning point for Nathan, I think. And after that, he just gets increasingly more mental. And then along comes Quantum Eraser, and then they start doing all this sort of basically a whole
pseudoscience.
Yeah, set of catchphrases is essentially what it is now, isn't it? That they run through their housekeeping, and they've got sort of catchphrase answers to all that, and it's just like a load of catchphrases. That's how I see it.
Do you have a Faking Flat episode that kind of describes what you just told us, or do you not remember?
Exactly. In fact, the whole series. Sorry, I was sort of rambling away there. Yeah.
No, you're fine.
Yeah, my first series of Faking Flat basically deals with that. It deals with, you see Riley actually, when he makes this 35-foot claim, and no one can really quite get this, it just isn't adding up. And eventually Miles Davis, I don't know if you come across him, but he's done some great observations. But he goes onto the debate show with Riley, and says to him, "You weren't at 35 feet, were you, Riley?" And Riley says, "Yes, I was, and I can prove it. I've got a bit of video that you haven't seen yet that proves it." And he gets out this bit of video, and he basically, I can't quite remember how it works. You have to watch the video, but if you watch it, you'll see he undoes himself. He shows that when he took this observation, he was actually at the top of the cliff and not the bottom of the cliff where he said he was.
Oh, he's such a liar. Riley, right?
Yeah, he basically exposes himself, and it goes on from there. And Quantum Eraser gets involved. But I was in all those early debates, nearly all of those first 70 odd shows I was in. And then when Nathan started going crazy and banning people and just being abusive, I just I stopped going in. And I hoped that everyone else would, and they did for a while, and then a new wave of people come along, and Yeah. Then they get pissed off with it, say, well, we're going to boycott him, and they boycott him, and then a new wave of people come along. I don't know. He seems to draw them in.
The boycott works. It worked so well. I was in. I did some Discord jumping a month ago or two, and they were telling me about the boycott. I think it was in Nathan's server. I was surprised. I was literally shocked. There was not a single flat earther in the voice chat. There was probably 30 Globers, and they're all telling me about the boycott, and I'm like, this is great,
Right. And because you often find people from that show, they're constantly promoting it. Oh, why don't you come on Nathan's show and tell him about it? Why they're constantly trying to get people to go on there.
Yeah,
and
it's money.
It is good when nobody goes on, because they're just sort of kicking their heels, and one of them
boring.
One of them has to act the Glober, you know what I mean? And it's all
I've heard him do that, literally.
Right. Yeah. And it's
pretend to be a Glober, and he'll say, okay, I'm gonna pretend to be the Glober. Arwen or Sleepy does it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just really lame to listen to, it's just not good. What the audience want, I think, is they want to hear Nathan going mental, don't they?
Oh, yeah.
On both sides of the fence, I think, really.
Yeah, definitely.
I can't watch it. It makes me feel too ill. I'm too old.
I get that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, most of the people that show up for the live view are there waiting for the dumpster fires to start.
Oh yeah.
Right.
No, 100%. You've been on though, haven't you, George? You've been on the show.
Yeah, I stopped appearing on the panel about 9 months ago. The last straw for me was Nathan had scheduled a debate, if you want to call it that, between Quantum Eraser and myself regarding reference frames and Coriolis. Well, Quantum Eraser went first, said he was going to take 10 minutes. It was 22 minutes later, listening to his rants and raves and looking at his cutty pasties. And I had taken notes, and I was going to refute most of what he said, and it was my turn. And within 30 seconds of my rebuttal, they all started jumping on me. First it was Arwen, then Riley, and then Quantum Eraser and Nathan. And, they mute you, they talk over you. I wasn't given a chance to have any rebuttal, and I said at that point, that's it for me. I'm not ever going to go back on here again. Because all they do, that's the tactic they use, is Nathan loves to lob lame insults at people and talk over them and mute them. During that show, I recorded my end, and I went back and I listened to the show that he posted on the video, and I'd say 70% of my responses were eliminated from the YouTube video. And so it just showed to me absolutely how disingenuous he was. And I recommend anyone out there, please refrain from going on Nathan's show. All it's doing is giving them oxygen. And I think it's more amusing just to sit and listen to him and his panel squatters squabble amongst one another and try to pretend they're Globers or, trying to do the Globe Earth argument. I think that's far more hilarious than having a Glober on there being browbeaten.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm with you too. It seems like that they even know what they're doing. They know we know, but they still put on the act for the audience. They know that we know that they're getting loud, and they kind of swarm around any Glober that starts dropping good logic and throwing a fit, arguing, yelling, and you could just see it's literally the cognitive dissonance and the extreme fundamentalist view is just pouring out of Oakley to where you can almost hear his body language being so violent when it's happening,
Right. And a point I heard you make the other day, which I think is absolutely right, is what we've seen in Flat Earth, I think, in the last few months, is it's just got more and more fundamentalist Christian, It's more and more about the Bible than it ever has been before.
Yeah, actually, there were a few shows on Oakley's. I think I pointed one of them out to you, Gem, many months ago, where Quantum Eraser was going through the scriptures to. He was talking about Genesis. I mean, it was like having Bible Sunday school.
Right.
He was going over, pointing out in the Bible where they talk about the second law of thermodynamics and and other things. It was absolutely incredible. But that's what it is. And you and I know that Quantum Eraser is a fundamental Christian, and he's just kind of cloaked it up until now. It's becoming more and more obvious. He's becoming bolder and bolder.
Right. And we saw it at the conference as well. If you look at the first one, there were people coming back from that first one saying, what's all this religious stuff? Where's all that come from? I didn't know that was going to be part of it. And then if you look at this year's one, it's just overtly religious. All of them. All of them
50%
mention
at least.
God.
Oh, yeah.
Right. But I think even people like, even Jaron, does his, it's
Finally
to keep us away from God, and and even he sounds more religious than he's ever sounded before.
Yeah, he has that famous quote. I'm not going to say the whole thing because I want to try not to get demonetized, but yeah, he makes a quote about Jesus, and And but you know, Jaren always. I think they realized early on that if they are upfront with the fact that they are fundamentalist religious, the side of them, that it's going to scare away audience members, because a lot of people have a religion. They're not going to change their religion. They're not going to modify it. And I think they want to make sure that it stays about the science. It only seems as things are breaking down, they're kind of grasping onto that strand to kind of stay in there a little bit.
Right. Yeah.
So let me ask you guys a few questions then, because you know I've been doing Flat Earth commentary for a couple years, and I amped up my Flat Earth content about a year ago, and a little while before the whole Behind the Curve thing happened, and then I got an audience when I did the Behind the Curve thing. A lot of people started like subscribing after that. I had a few videos that kind of got views and stuff, so I don't have that whole background with Oakley, with Sleepy, and with those guys. I've always wanted to kind of pick someone's brain, so let me ask you, you knew him before the show. What is it like to see how he is now, knowing that he was once a guy that could actually debate with someone in a calm way? Like, do you feel like you could reach out to him and get through to him, or
no, not at all. No,
he's a lost cause.
Yeah, and there's too much water under the bridge between us personally, because one of the videos I was producing a while back would have been, I don't know, the year before last, I think, I called it Children of the Flat Earth. And a thing that was going on at the time was that there was a lot of activism going on that was being directed at children.
Oh, that's so scary, dude.
Right. Now, if you're a flat earther and you tell your child that the Earth's flat, that's up to you. That's none of my business. That has absolutely nothing to do with me, and I would not make a video on that subject because it's none of my business. Yeah. But and you know, I'm an atheist, so you know, most parents tell their children something I think is not true. So yeah, you know, so but this wasn't about that. This was about them directing their activism at children that weren't theirs and that they hadn't got permission to, you know, do activism to. And so I set about making this video, and I made a channel in my Discord server called Children of the Flat Earth. And I stuck a post in there saying, if you've got any links to any videos of flat earthers indoctrinating children with flat earth stuff, post them here. And Oakley got wind of this and decided that this was me, and I quote, gathering data on flat earthers' children.
Oh my God.
And that became the phrase, you know what he's like with his catchphrases, that he repeated over and over again. And he basically made out that I was this pedophile that was, I don't know why I would, you know, have a thing for flat earther children.
It's so crazy, dude. But, so crazy.
But that was the idea anyway. And so that's what he did. And
yeah,
so since then, he and I have
pissed.
not been friends. But you can see that video on the channel. If you see, the video itself is called Children of the Flat Earth. And then there's a video called Children of the Flat Earth, A Prelude, which tells you the story of, you know, what I went through to make it. But it's interesting to see, you know, you see a really despicable behavior. It opens up with Joshua Swift, for instance, Authentic Intent.
Oh, my goodness.
He's at an ice hockey game, sat next to a father and his, like, 7-year-old kid. And he starts trying to flat smack him. And the dad just sort of giggles at him and won't have any of it. And then the game ends. And as they're walking out, he tells this 7-year-old, he says Santa isn't real to this 7-year-old.
You gotta be kidding me.
He says it. Check it out. It's right at the beginning of that video. You'll see
the first one right here.
Yeah, Children of the Flat Earth, not the Prelude, the actual, not that one, the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
While I'm pulling that up, you've heard about Authentic Intent and what happened with him, right? With him getting arrested for pedophilia or whatever it was.
Right.
And
he ended up
raping a 14-year-old.
Yeah. So how ironic, but okay, we got to see this clip. Here we go. Here's a clip. He hates me now, by the way, but anyway, here we go.
Hey, gentlemen, are you from Detroit? We're originally from Michigan. We live in Des Moines now.
Okay, right on. I have a DVD here. It actually talks about the most controversial subjects on the internet.
Okay.
Flat Earth. Yeah. It just shows some alternative viewpoint about the Earth not being a spinning ball in outer space. So
It is. We have pictures.
you have fake doctored pictures.
Oh my God. I hate that. It's, you know, not every picture could be fake authentic intent. You're not that authentic intent. Okay, sorry. Anybody want to add anything in before I hit play? Anybody else?
No, I just had that. Obviously, I blurred the kid out. He didn't.
Good. Oh no, yeah.
He put the kid in.
He uploaded this himself?
Yeah.
Oh, what a ding dong. Okay, here we go.
Pictures. And it's never been measured that it's spinning.
Oh my God, yes it has, you ding dong.
You can see it.
From where?
You can use the pendulum that moves around because the
Last minute of play in the first period. 1 minute.
does this.
Foucault's pendulum? Yeah. So you have to start You have to start the pendulum to move, sir. Gravity's a theory, sir. That's buoyancy and density, sir. Have you ever been to the edge of space?
Oh, I love the cuts, dude. You're a good editor. You are a good editor, dude. Perfect cuts.
Thank you very much.
Perfect.
Do you know what the equation is to prove that we live on a ball? It just weighs more than the air around it, sir. That doesn't make any sense, sir.
You have something that faces straight down.
Let him watch the hockey game,
One way, and then it moves.
Yeah, I did.
That poor kid trapped in the middle.
And even other, as you can hear right now, other people sat around them and saying, "Let him watch the hockey game."
Yeah, dude, he has no social cognition at all.
Right.
I did pay for a ticket. We don't live on a spinning ball, okay, ma'am? Hey, that's cool, man. I am grown up. That's why I'm here. You should grow up.
He's not grown up. He definitely he sleeps with 14-year-olds. Authentic intent, that's not grown up, sir.
Well, he's much like Nathan Thompson. They seem to be devoid of understanding social norms and personal space.
Right.
No, very much. Yeah. Okay, here we go. A little more. We
Here
got to
he
stomach
goes.
a tiny bit more.
If you're wearing somebody else's name on your shirt. So, all right, guys. Well, have a good afternoon. Have a good, safe trip home.
Hey, we will.
All right.
You too.
And Santa Claus isn't real, okay?
Oh my God, that dad should just. Oh, you don't do that to my kid, bro. Oh no. Oh, you'll get me mad. Authentic
Well,
intent.
watch
I'll
how
get
it reacts.
pissed.
If you say that one more fucking time, I will fucking deck you. Do you understand me?
You're on camera, sir. Lie to your
There you go, sir. That's fucking right. That's right.
kids some more.
Hi, YouTube.
Oh my God, GemPanda. Wow.
And what we see though
Wow.
is the thing that we always see now is the camera used as a weapon. I've got the camera on you.
It's a self-defense mechanism. Like, you can't punch
Right.
me. It's like, oh, dude, just imagine that dad punching through that camera.
Right.
That's so messed up. What did the kid do out there? See, it just proves that he has something like in his head that lets him, be inappropriate towards kids, whether it's whatever type of inappropriate behavior. At least we just saw that kind. That's inappropriate.